Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today on this first panel discussion to a wide crowd during Abu Dhabi Finance Week. We're going to kickstart this conversation. And as the MC has suggested, this panel is going to be going through elements of livability, culture, and economic growth that Monica had just spoken about in her presentation. Yusuf, perhaps starting with you, I want to direct a question.
Okay. He's saying he can't hear you clearly. The feedback is really bad.
Oh, so we're having a little bit of technical
feedback.
difficulties.
Not very.
But your mic should be right next to you for you to speak through.
Yes.
There you go. So the first question that I want to direct to you is about Lulu. And essentially, you've just listed over a year ago.
Sorry, excuse me, I'm not.
So we're
Properly.
getting a little bit of,
I
again,
don't know whether you are.
can everyone else hear me on the stage? Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll repeat.
Talal, are you able to hear?
Yes, I'll repeat it.
Okay, maybe you can get the questions through. So, Yusuf, we're going to talk about the fact that Lulu has listed on the ADX over a year ago at this point. So, as the chairman of a listed company now in Abu Dhabi, I want to know how your life has changed a little bit since listing.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting. I'm honored to be here today, this August distinguished panel. See, we are here since 52 years. And in 1966, my late uncle started our business. And I joined 1973 December. First of all, this is a great country, particularly UAE and particularly in Abu Dhabi. We see the transformations, the upgradations, the new things happen in this great city, country, Abu Dhabi. We have got a strong foundation laid by Allah Rahma, late His Highness Sheikh Said bin Sultan Al Nahyan. The foundation is strong. And now, an investor perspective, what an investor need? Number one, a strong and visionary leadership. We have got His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, president of this great country. We have got our Crown Prince, His Highness Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. So, visionary leadership. Second, a strong economy. We see the petrol price came 30, 40, 80, 120. So, all this scenario we saw it. But our economy, Abu Dhabi, is very strong economy is going on. Second. Third, the infrastructure of this country. Abu Dhabi's infrastructure is the best and the safest place in the world. You can see the last, the information that we received from the international agencies that Abu Dhabi is the safest city, one of the safest city in the world. So this is the four scenario with leadership, economy, infrastructure, and now the new things that is, we have got culture and secularism.
Right.
The biggest temple in the Middle East is in Abu Dhabi. Churches, mosques. So the secularism. Let an investor see what the perspective of this place
Right.
is 100% secularism. That also there. And ease of doing business under the leadership of His Highness. There is a lot of laws changed and digital transformation, artificial intelligence integrated, cultural district started, history is there. Now people are talking about artificial intelligence and also digitalization, robotic. We have got history also, in Abu Dhabi. You can see the museums, You
Yeah.
can see, including the Louvre Museum.
And we'll get back to talking about the environment in Abu Dhabi and everything you just alluded to. But Talal, perhaps moving on to you and briefly, you had an announcement this morning about an expansion, but I want you to talk about that. But then I guess the second part of my question is, when I was preparing for this panel, a big element that came through is when it comes to livability, affordability is a big element when it comes to housing. Now, Abu Dhabi has been attracting a lot of people from all around the world over the past few years. And a big element of expenditure is housing affordability. So, how do you tackle that at Aldar?
Thank you, and thank you to all the esteemed guests and the organizers on this incredible event and esteemed panel. So, on your first question, Abir, we're a proud offshoot of Mubadala. We're 20 years old. They remain one of our largest shareholders and backers. This is a series of partnerships that we've had with Mubadala starting the last 4 years. We acquired ADGM, the office complex over here. We announced a series of joint ventures last year. Last week, we announced the formation of Aldar Capital with Mubadala Capital. That's going to be the region's one of the region's first real assets investment manager to bridge the gap between global capital that wants to come in and invest in Abu Dhabi. The remarks that we heard from His Excellency Khaldoon this morning. And just this morning, we announced a further partnership with Mubadala to develop North Al Maria. So as you're walking out and facing the Galleria Mall, everything towards your right-hand side or behind Active Sports, it's a 60 billion dirham development that will phase the next phase of growth in terms of commercial office space, residential and branded residential, hospitality, a convention center, world-class infrastructure and amenities. And this fits within Abu Dhabi's urban framework, the same framework that started in 2008, announcing the 2030 vision. And now we're planning for the next decade or two. On your second question, as Abu Dhabi is expanding across all of these key sectors, financial sector, the culture, the entertainment, aviation, logistics, and so on, affordability is a big theme. And we're partnering and working very closely with the state, represented by the Department of Municipalities and Transport, to tackle this topic, but not to tackle affordable housing, to tackle affordable lifestyle. What we don't want to have is housing in an area where they're underserved in terms of their retail, healthcare, education, or transport. So I think part of Abu Dhabi's vision, as we do it with everything, as we saw yesterday with an incredible event at the Formula One, it's about an integrated community lifestyle development. So even in the affordable segment, it's important that we bring all of those aspects together. And that is going to be one of the biggest areas of growth for our capital, as well as third-party capital, to invest in that theme over the next 5 years.
How about moving on to you, and I'm going by order here. Covering banks is a big part of what we do at Bloomberg. Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank has had a pretty robust third quarter, 14% up on profits. It's a similar story to UAE banks that are quite liquid, especially when compared to regional peers. But in your position at the bank and from the ecosystem that you're witnessing, what do you think is the role of banks in supporting economic growth momentum in Abu Dhabi and the wider UAE?
So thank you again, and very happy to be here today to participate in this panel. The way I look at it is that banks are I would call it a piece in the puzzle of the wider ecosystem, right? So banks are important to support the wider vision of the institution, and you measure the strength of an economy with the strength of its banking system, because banks are a reflection of the health of the economy and the strength of its clients. So we have a very important role to play to ensure that we continue to support the ecosystem, and we always keep 2 steps ahead of the equation. There were some discussions whether some other players would disrupt banking system, and I would always say that we complement each other, because the real competition is the customer expectation. You solve for customer expectation, whether you're a bank or a non-bank, and hence it's very important that banks continue to evolve and driving future innovations to support our partners on the corporate side to ensure that we deliver on their future ambitions.
So now moving on to you. This is a question that you're probably bored of at this point, but I have to direct it at you. You said earlier this year that there is no timeline for Etihad going public, but that the company remains ready. What would it take? What environmental changes would it take for the company to actually go public?
Thank you for having Etihad here. Thank you, panelists. I mean, we are in a journey, right? It's been over the past 3 years. We have doubled the size of the airline. We have just announced 31 new destinations. I mean, we came from an airline that was bottom quartile in terms of profitability about 3 years ago, globally speaking, to an airline today that is top quartile. We're going to be investing about $10 billion, 37 billion dirhams in the next 5 years in new aircraft to double again the airline. And cash flow generation is coming very strong. So, I mean, becoming a public company is just another way to finance the company, right? And reality is that Etihad now is paying dividends, and we can finance our growth from our own cash flow generation. So IPO is not an end game. It's not a final destination for us. I mean, our obligation as management is to be ready to go public whenever the shareholder believes is the right time. But if you look at what's going on in the world, right? I mean, the most profitable airlines are buying back shares, right? And I think the shareholder is wondering why IPO if the airline is generating cash and self-funding $10 billion in investment over the past 5 years. So in the end, it's going to be a shareholder decision. Etihad, from a governance perspective, from a balance sheet perspective, from a storytelling perspective, a strategy perspective is ready to go, but it's up for the shareholder to think if there is a need from their part to go public.
Sticking with you for a second, another theme in this panel that came up was culture. And, you know, airlines, especially in the region, have a big part in promoting, you know, the country's cultures. How do you see the role of Etihad? How do you view your strategy? Has it changed in terms of promoting the Abu Dhabi culture over the past few years?
I would say that ADQ is the shareholder of Etihad now, and in about 2019, ADQ started to manage the airline, and the mandate that ADQ gave to Etihad was really clear as a shareholder, right? Deliver extraordinary customer experiences, and at the same time make money, right? I mean, airlines are very important for cities, for economic development, as you could see before. I mean, we're growing a lot and hiring more than 2,500 people per year, but you can only do that if you make money, right? So I think the role of the airline to the country is extremely important. I mean, our contribution to GDP is extraordinary. But we can only do that if we're sustainable, right? Financially viable. And that's what we try to do, improving in our product, improving our customer experience, and at the same time make sure that we expand our margins so that the airline can finance the growth ahead of us. Abu Dhabi is booming. Population is growing more than 7 to 8%. So we need to be there with capital to be allocated at the right time, at the right place, so that we can support the growth of Abu Dhabi.
Hamad, I want to move on to you, and I haven't forgotten about AI. We will give it a chunk of time towards the end of the session. But again, going back to the banking system and with healthy balance sheets in the UAE going around, banks in the UAE generally have had successful ventures into M&A and acquisitions into different places around the world. Is that something you see within the next few years for Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank consolidation efforts, whether in Europe, Asia, elsewhere? Is that something that you're planning on, or is that something that you would say interested in?
So before talking specifically about Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank, I think what I picked up from the opening speech from His Excellency Khaldoon is that you have to believe, right? Because the next 10 years is going to look very different than what we have envisaged over the last 20 years. And if you're going to go into heavy investments particularly in the field of AI, the Excel file will not work. It's not an easy investment to assess what will be the return on investment to come. You have to believe and you have to invest. So going back to your question, will the traditional way of expanding the banking network still hold true in the next 10 years? I would probably say that scale is not anymore as important as smart. You have to be intelligent. So instead of looking how you expand your footprint in the traditional way, you have to think how you intelligently expand your offering and become almost like a global player with a regional and local flavor. And that's what's going to define the next 10 years of banking.
Talal, you spoke a little bit about education and in your previous answer, and Eldar has had again a successful venturing out into education over the past few years as well. Are there other sectors that you're looking at outside of the traditional vehicles that you've generally put your money in? We've spoken about education, housing, obviously, the bread and butter. But are there any other sectors and any other regions that you would be interested in venturing out into outside of the country here?
So outside the UAE, we've had two successful ventures, one in the UK, where we have 3 partnerships. We own a real estate developer, we have a logistics franchise and a credit franchise. And we're also in Egypt, where we majority co-own with ADQ, a listed developer called Sodic. But again, back to the opening remarks, when you believe what Abu Dhabi has done and what we've seen and what it is going to do in the next 5 or 10 years, it makes it very difficult to start to allocate capital anywhere else from a risk-adjusted basis. So the majority of our capital is going to be dominated in the UAE and the places closest to home across all of the sectors. But on your first question, there are themes for us as a business and some for the nation that we are investing in. So logistics is one that we've been very, very bullish about. We've been talking about it for the last few years. We've taken some baby steps. We want to take some bigger and bolder moves when it comes to logistics, and particularly warehouses, to fuel Abu Dhabi's economic diversification efforts, Abu Dhabi's industrial strategy, which we think is absolutely important with light manufacturing, with technology, Stargate, and the likes. Another interesting theme, to create a bit of competition for my fellow banks on stage and thing, is the rise of private credit. Private credit has been a globally rising theme. For us, we concentrate more in real estate credit, and that's what we've been investing with Mubadil and Ares in Europe. And we think with everything that's going to happen over here, we're going to need the banks, but we're also going to need private credit. So that's another theme that we're looking at as a brand new sector that we're talking to the authorities about. And in an environment such as ADGM, where it's conducive to investments, they'll create the right frameworks to attract those sectors. So that's another key sector that we're looking at in addition to the ones that you mentioned.
So since you brought it up, and I wasn't planning on asking this, but you brought up private credit, and I'll bring back the question to you. Are you worried about the rise of private credit in the region? And do you think that the market is ripe for private credit here?
No, actually, we welcome it a lot because private credit is playing in a field where banks have not gone yet, right? So it's filling that vacuum. So banks complement private credit and private credit complements bank, and they have different investor type, right? So it talks to different investors and different mechanisms. So in the country, we welcome that different development and we will continue supporting it.
So we've got a few minutes left for this panel, which has been really interesting so far, but obviously it wouldn't be a 2025 conference if we don't speak about artificial intelligence. But I want to dedicate questions tailored to your respective companies about AI. Yusuf, perhaps going to you, AI, how does it cut cost in your daily operations?
See, each sector, now we are forced to go for upgradation, especially in the AI sector. We in food sector, we are focusing now the new innovations in the food sector, like gluten-free, diet-free, diabetic food, and egg-free, sugar-free. All these new innovations are coming in the food sector. So artificial intelligence is very important for us to use because this is the new technology. We are $8 billion company, which we have got 300 hypermarkets. Now the people can pick the products and artificial AI, they can go and they can pay themselves with Google and not necessary to wait in the cashier or cash counter. So this is one sector that we are focusing, that our customers should be satisfied. For that, we need artificial intelligence to be used, especially robotic plucking and in our warehouses, grading and expiry, all these AI we are using now.
Talal, when it comes to the housing sector, does AI cut cost at all when it comes to design, the product from origination until fruition? And how do you see the impact of it across your business?
Absolutely, Javier. So, first of all, the theme in the past has been digitally enabling the business. Today, it's about digitally disrupting, not just the business, but the entire sector, from design to construction. Again, we're going to build homes, but in the how. We're not looking at it from a pure cost-cutting measure, but more from a value creation perspective. And we're doing that in two folds. One is outward looking, so connecting our customers. Abu Dhabi has taken great steps in developing TEM, connecting all the government services. We've developed our version of TEM, since TEM has become a globally recognized brand. That's called Live Al Dar, which is a one-stop digital solution, whether you're in our schools, malls, loyalty program, buying, renting a property, all on one platform that's live. And the other part is embedding AI across every part of our business, from recruitment, finance, legal, design, to construction, to management. And we've taken steps, but I think we're just at the nascent parts of what is to come. So it's a very exciting journey ahead.
Talal, thank you so much, Yusuf, Hamad, and Tonaldo. Thank you very much for your time today. This is all the time that we have left for this session. But I wish it would have lasted longer. I think it was really interesting, but thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a successful few days at Abu Dhabi Finance Week. Thank you, guys.